This is your principal, so we use the letter P for that because that's crazy. That sounds good. This is your rate, so we use the letter R for that. That makes sense. For your rate, your interest rate. So I want to know, after 1 year, how much money do I have in the account?
Which question? Is it earning 6% per year or per month?
Per year.
Per year.
If it's per month, please point me in the direction of that bad boy.
Yeah.
How much money in a year? Yes, ma'am.
Is it the same as maturity people?
All right, so I know a few of you guys that love it. We're not going to get anywhere near compounding per whatever, or maturities or investments or anything like that. Forget that. We're nowhere near that. This is simple interest, right? And then you can add on top of this all these other little adjustments and other ways to do things. So this is remarkably simple interest. So on one level, this is the same as what we were doing before. This is how the percentage that I'm going to add on top of this. That's how that works, right?
You would move your decimals over and then you would make the addition problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how much interest will it earn in 1 year is going to be, how am I going to figure out the interest? I stands for interest. Is that cool? Interest will be what? What percent of what? It'll be 4,000 times 6%. Is that cool? 6% of 4,000. I'm just going to write it that way for some weird ass reason. You'll see why in a minute. Now I know you can plug that in the calculator, but I want to show you one other little cool trick that I don't think I've shown you yet. The way I multiply decimals is, if I move this over twice, I've got to move that back twice to keep the whole multiplication even. You don't like that, I guess.
No, I like it. I'm just saying, go for it. I like it.
Yeah, you ready?
I like that.
So if I multiply this one by 100, I have to divide this one by 100 to keep everything even. And 40 times 6 is easy. What's 40 times 6? 240. So anybody who already did 4,000 times 0.06, did you not get 240? Of course you did, because that's the number. Yeah, if I multiply part of this by 100, I've got to divide the other part by 100, so the answer comes out the same. Does that make sense? So you can always move the decimals around in a multiplication problem to make the numbers more whole. Hell yes. You better believe I do that. Or just plug in a calculator, if I let you use it. So how much, what's the amount that I have in my account then? After 1 year. Yeah, 4,240. I like it.
Wait. Tell me.
Now, because this is simple interest, I know some of you guys know business and banking and all this pretty well. You don't have to know it too much better than this to know that it would grow off of that number normally. But this is simple interest. So what we do is, for simple interest, I just multiply by the number of years it's in there. So for interest, how did I get the interest? And this was after 1 year, so this was like times 1 for 1 year. So what was this number again? What letter do I put in place of that number? That is the principal. So the interest is the principal times the interest rate. So that's R. Times time. And I call this the I-B pretty formula.
What?
You don't have to say that out loud to anybody, ever. But it's a nice way to remember. I-B pretty. Just like, you guys know the formula distance equals rate times time? You ever heard of that distance equals rate times time? I call that the DIRT formula, right? DIRT, D-E-R-T. Anyway, so I-B pretty is a little bit more interesting. So one last example is, and then we'll head out. If I put, let's say I won the lottery, got 500,000 bucks, and I put it in a 7% account. I like that. Not really that much. I'm sorry. Jackie's like, I'm not impressed. All right. Yes.
Sorry. And you right.
Yeah, you're gonna multiply to figure out how much interest. But I put it in there for 9 years. How much interest will that accrue if they're using simple interest? So at this level now, it's just a plug and chug thing. I hope you guys realize that.
Right.
We have a
The 1 year
formula.
first, and you add the 9 to it.
Figure out what the numbers go in for. Remember, you always change percentages to decimals because math doesn't understand the percentage. It's something humans made up. It's not the number. Good. Exactly. Anytime before you do anything with that percentage, you gotta move that decimal over.
You gotta move forward 2 times.
2 times.
And then multiply.
So the rate be 0.07. I like it. That's the rate. The principal is, what's the principal? 500,000. That's the amount that you put in. And then times time, 9 years.
Wouldn't change after every year?
Not for simple interest. Yeah. You're thinking about compound interest.
Yeah, I'm like, wouldn't that be a different number at the end of the year and then they'd have to go off that next year?
Yes. But again, this is like the foundation, and then you go from there.
Alright.
Yeah. What they say anything about other interests. Yeah, you don't. But please, a lot of you guys have been out in the real world. A lot of you guys have worked with businesses or have your bank accounts, and you know that there's more to the story than just this formula. But this is where you start, and then you start to tweak this thing. So what do you guys get when you multiply all that together?
45,000.
Did you do times 9?
315,000.
315,000?
Sorry, I forgot.
Oh, that's all right. That sounds right. Exactly. Good. So that's how much interest made. So they almost doubled. I mean, that's 315,000 on top of this after 9 years. Of course, in the real world, it'll be more. In the real world, the next step, if you want to get to the real world, is we do 1 year, get this, and then we do the next year using this number here instead. Then we do the next year using that new number here instead. And there's actually a formula, you know there is, that we could use for if it's compound. Even if you, so that's if you compound it every year, meaning they add the interest every year. But then you can add the interest every month. You can add the interest every minute. You can add the interest every second. You can add the interest every millisecond. Holy shit, that's enough for today. Yeah, exactly.